8, 7, 6, 5.
Enough of this. Vader, release him.
As you wish.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of 8 is Enough. I am Urza Master. Joining me, Lord Uther and Dick Van Patten, here to talk Halloween and some of our favorite horror movies. Now, if you're not familiar with the 8 is Enough franchise here at Pending Rebrand, click that subscribe button and make sure you check out our archives, because we could do a top 10. We could do a top 5, but that seems like not enough, so we figured 8 is enough. So we're going to kick it off today. Let's start with our newest member of the council, Dick Van Patten. We're walking through our favorite horror movies for Halloween and or scary movies for Halloween. Dick Van Patten, what do you got at number 8?
Number 8 is extremely fresh, and I just don't mean on Rotten Tomatoes, folks. It literally came out in the spring of 2024, this very year. I know you haven't seen it, because I've seen the box office numbers, but it's worth checking out. Number 8 for Halloween chillers is Sting. It is an Australian film directed by Kaya Roach Turner. It is only the second killer spider movie that I have ever enthusiastically embraced, a la 1990s Arachnophobia. This one's about a young girl, and she discovers a tiny cute spider in her room and puts it in a jar and decides to call it Sting, and decides to keep it as a pet. However, Sting is not interested in staying in the jar, and pretty soon he is life-size and threatening the dog, the newborn baby, and everybody else in the apartment complex. Now, I can't describe that. You might hate spiders. You might say, ooh, that's not for me. Let me tell you, folks, it is a roller coaster. It is fast. It is funny. There is, on-screen spider violence, but nothing that's going to make you run screaming into the other room. You'll just flinch the next time you see one of the little suckers skittering around on the kitchen tile. So I absolutely, for a film that you have not yet heard of or seen, check out the trailer, find it on streaming, find it at Walmart, which is where I've just seen recent Blu-ray copies. But 2024's Sting is my number 8.
Interesting. Lord Uther.
Well, I'm sure it's no Arachnophobia with John Goodman, but that's a whole nother story there. And anytime I would hear someone say go to Walmart to get your Blu-rays, I never thought we would get to that point. But here we are, because
After
I love
the
my
last
physical
Kmart
media.
closed.
Yes, that's right. My number 8, Sleepy Hollow. It's anything with Tim Burton directing it is good by me. And Johnny Depp, come on, this is what he's great at, right? Those quirky, out-of-the-box type roles. To me, it's just a fun Halloween kind of set the mood type of movie. So I'm going Sleepy Hollow at my 8.
Very classic. I like that. That was a good movie. Did not make my top 8. I'm going to start off with the American version of a Japanese film. I'm going with The Ring with Naomi Watts and what's-his-face. This is a great flick. I saw it in the theater, actually, in high school. It's one of the few horror movies I ever went to the theater to see. One of the few horror movies I actually like. But Naomi Watts is great in everything I've ever seen her in. This is no exception. If you're into VHS tapes, highly recommend The Ring.
Outstanding. Rolling along with my limited math skills, I believe we're at number 7. And this is also a picture I know you haven't seen, but you've had more time to catch up on this one, so shame on you if you're not familiar. We're going to go with 2001's Session 9. It was directed by Brad Anderson. It starred David Caruso, Josh Lucas, and Peter Mullen. And it is the story of a hazardous waste material cleanup crew who are sent to clear out asbestos in an abandoned mental institution in New England. And they bid for the contract, and they put a far too unrealistic deadline to get the job. And then bad things start to happen in the asylum, as you imagine. the ghosts of the insane past come back to roost. It is chilling. There is, again, very little on-screen violence, but it is atmosphere, it is dripping pipes, it is an abandoned wheelchair at the end of a long corridor sending a menacing tone. It is recovered audio tapes from past sessions with patients. And it really, truly, honestly, this is a film now, me in my fifth decade. I still need to have the lights on when I go upstairs after seeing this film, and I've seen it multiple times. So check it out. Session 9, David Caruso, Josh Lucas. A real chiller. Again, not soaked in blood and gore, but it will give you the shivers on your spine.
Like it.
Anytime I hear David Caruso, mental institution, and hazardous cleanup, I automatically get chills down my spine as well. My number 7 is a classic John Carpenter flick, The Thing. We get a little sci-fi. We get the who is it vibe that I always like trying to figure out. Who's got the alien inside of them kind of thing. And again, a little bit of gore as well. So The Thing always throws a scare. The original Thing, not this updated stuff. Just like to me, there's only one. Oh man, Total Recall, not 2. There's 1. I'll just leave it at that.
Very nice. My number 7, 13 Ghosts. This is one I caught on HBO back in the day. During an era with which you could obtain HBO extra legally. I call it a family movie. I'm going to leave it at that. But it's very interesting. One of the more unique movies I think I've ever seen in terms of storytelling. I don't want to give away too much because it's really good. If you haven't seen it, 13 Ghosts, go check it out. I think it's streaming on most platforms, especially during the month of October.
At number 6, we have David Cronenberg's reimagining of The Fly from 1986. It's a film that honestly only really has 3 or 4 speaking roles in its entirety. And most of those go to stars Jeff Goldblum, Gina Davis, and John Getz. This is, of course, where Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis meet on camera and off and carry on several years together before moving on to different partners respectively. But in here, and produced by Mel Brooks's production company, Brooks Film, but is far away from any Mel Brooks production you've ever seen. It is tragic, it is operatic, it boasts an all-time score from Howard Shore, who would also give us the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit music for Peter Jackson. Shore was Cronenberg's longtime composer, and this is a towering score. The story of a doomed scientist who tried to invent teleportation technology and instead gets his DNA fused with the molecules of a common housefly, and his eventual deterioration and descent into madness. This one is extremely gory, but done so in a way that, again, pulls at your heartstrings. And I kid you not, again, I've seen this film 20 dozen times since it came out in theaters in 1986, and I still tear up. In fact, I sometimes weep uncontrollably by the film's climax, and that's hard to say on a Halloween movie. When it can get you to turn on the waterworks, you know that they've struck a nerve and a bone. So Jeff Goldblum, Gina Davis, David Cronenberg, The Fly at number 6.
What could a late 70s, early 80s Mel Brooks have done with The Fly is my question now. I got to think about that. My number 6, going back to the 1960s, is The Birds. I had to watch that for a film class. I always wanted to be like Dick Van Patten over there. And so I took a film class at College of DuPage, which is known for their film studies. And during this amazing class, we had to view some older, scary type of movies, and just the idea of being swarmed nonstop and these birds trying to peck the life out of you, almost as good as the crow scene from Excalibur where the eyes are being poked out of some of the dead knights that were on a tree. So for me, the birds, they're gonna get you.
Great, great movie. Not really all that scary, I guess. Maybe just, one of those where the special effects didn't age great. But fantastic movie. Like, in the context, I also watched it for a film class and enjoyed it very thoroughly. My number 6 is right on that same wagon of class. I have a degree in English Lit, so of course I got to go with Misery. What better than a novelist who happens down the wrong road and runs into a very obsessed Kathy Bates. Fantastic movie. If you haven't seen Misery, you are missing out. It is one of the more compelling, obsessed fan stories that I think I've ever read, ever seen a movie. James Caan is unbelievably good in this movie, and so is Kathy Bates, by the way. Both absolute treasures. Rest in peace, James Caan and Kathy Bates. I'm actually looking forward to Matlock. I gotta say, and a lot of it is because of Misery.
And I would point out Rob Reiner, who has given us everything from Stand By Me to A Few Good Men to When Harry Met Sally. This was his first foray, and I think probably only foray into horror with Misery, and he shows that he can do that genre as well as any of the others that he tackled. When you think and hear of Meathead from All in the Family, you say, is he going to deliver a compelling, snow-swept Stephen King adaptation? The answer is yes, and that's why you should check out Misery. At number 5 of 8 is Enough, we have the original 1979 drive-in classic Phantasm, directed by Don Coscarelli, featuring a towering performance by Angus Scrimm as the Tall Man, of which I just procured a Christmas present that is Tall Man related. This is that film that you remember seeing on HBO commercials, the silver ball with the hooks, goes around and chases teenagers and adults and tries to drill holes in the back of their head and spew out their brains. Again, very violent, not for everybody. And the original Phantasm, which spawned 4 sequels of pretty good quality, I must say. There's this consistency of the series, 2, 3, 4. You start to think you're getting diminishing returns, you don't. But this original has this unbelievable dreamlike quality in which scenes don't even seem to connect with one another, like a good nightmare. But, well before Freddy Krueger and Wes Craven staked this out, this whole film feels like some fever, pitch black hallucination. And it just, as in that spirit, it just absolutely unsettles you. It's another one you're going to want to leave the lights on. Yeah, the special effects are a little corny. It's 1979. You can make fun of it if you like, and some have. But if you let its spirit creep into you, I guarantee you it absolutely personifies Halloween. And if you want to continue the franchise, you won't be disappointed in the follow-ups. They got bigger budgets, better special effects, and so forth. But Angus Scrimm and Phantasm clock in at number 5.
Yeah, my number 5 has already been said, and it was Misery. Anytime you can get a good Stephen King book onto film, you get just absolutely wonderful results with Kathy Bates and James Caan. So the great things have already been said about it, so I'm just going to go number 5, Misery.
My number 5 is a cult classic, and I loved this when it came out, and I was very fortunate to run across a horror movie fanatic who was clearing out their physical media, wrongly so. Tribute to physical media, because a lot of these great horror flicks of back in the day never made it to DVD. They're only on VHS. This one happened to be only ever released on DVD and VHS, so if you find a copy on either, go get it. May have been re-released in the last couple of years because people have fell in love with it, but that's Idle Hands. Obviously a nod to something many of us young gentlemen were told way back in the day. But I don't want to say too much about it because you start to explain the plot a little bit and folks get a little lost in what in the hell are you talking about? Trust me, you will enjoy yourself thoroughly. It's funny, it's creepy, it's not really terribly scary, but it's Seth Green.
At number 4, we'll stay in the year 1979, good year for thrills, with Ridley Scott's seminal Alien, a film that has launched a decades-long franchise, comic book novel tie-ins, toy lines, board games, the works. But this is the one that started it all. 7 oil workers in space taking their refinery ship, the Nostromo, back home with their full cargo load, are diverted to a planet with a distress call. And when they find what they find on this planetoid is enough to send you shivering. It is a literal haunted house in space movie. If the ghost was actually a 10-foot tall acid for blood xenomorph, which is very rarely glimpsed, like the original shark in Jaws. But when it does make its brief appearances on camera, absolutely it's nightmare fuel. The problem with establishing a franchise over decades is that the eventual thrills do wear off. You see more and more of these creatures. You get the action figures at your favorite Walmart and retailer, and it's suddenly not quite as terrifying. That being said, this film, the Nostromo, its interiors, its piping, its all of its physical space is impressive and intimidating. You've got Tom Skerritt, Sigourney Weaver, Ian Holm, John Hurt, Yaphet Kotto, Veronica Cartwright, Harry Dean Stanton, a small cast of characters, Jones the Cat, but the original Alien stands head and shoulders even above James Cameron's action follow-up, Aliens, which was also a classic, but a completely different animal. Ridley Scott, this is his career launching at full blast, and Alien at number 4.
My number 4 starts getting into things that creep me out in general. And unfortunately, Dick Van Patten has shown me way too many movies that have freaked me out. So going back to our Fridays, getting out of school and running over to Blockbuster Video, and when Dick Van Patten would actually pay $100 for a VCR movie, I remember that. Those were the days. But anyway, Puppet Master freaked the ever-living bejesus out of me because anytime there's puppets, I just don't like puppets. And that movie has puppets. And not only puppets, but a puppet master. So, don't like it, freaks me out. Not a fan. But scares me. So there we go.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
That movie gave me nightmares for years. I want to point out, as I move to my number 4, I did not select the movies that actually terrified me because, one, the list is kind of random, and one of them is kind of embarrassing. But shout out to the Puppet Master for being one of them that absolutely freaked me out. If you're looking for the scariest movie one of the scariest movies I've ever seen did not make my list. It's an honorable mention. Fire in the Sky.
Oh.
Just don't go see it. It's terrifying. But oh my God, I can't even think about it for too long because it will scare me now. And I have not seen it for, what year is it? 2024? Since 1995.
Yeah.
So 29 years, and I'm going for more. My number 4 is creepy, but a really enjoyable movie, and actually kind of heartwarming in an odd sense. And that is The Sixth Sense. Bruce Willis delivers a phenomenal performance with Haley Joel Osment as a young boy who can see dead people. I don't think I have to say too much more about it, but I have a feeling this one's starting to get lost in the generational shuffle. It is one of the finest films of that era that if you haven't seen it, highly recommend.
All right, friends, it's top three time, and all of my three do have a through line, and that would be they were either written, directed, produced, or all three by John Carpenter. I'm looking at the poster for something that's going to end up shortly discussed. A new film from John Carpenter, Master of Terror and Suspense. This was my go-to guy growing up. Obviously launching his career as a USC film student with Dark Star, and continuing all the way through the 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond. At number three, his 1980 ghost story, The Fog. This was the first film he did following his breakthrough smash, 1978's Halloween. There was no Michael Myers, but there were leprous sailor ghosts who descend upon a small Californian town celebrating their 100th year anniversary. And wouldn't you know it, that at midnight on the 100th year anniversary, the vengeful ghosts who were betrayed and lured to their death by the townspeople 100 years ago have come seeking vengeance. And only Adrienne Barbeau, John Houseman, and Jamie Lee Curtis can stand in their way. And again, this was Jamie Lee. She'd done a couple of horror films in between Halloween and The Fog, but this was her return with Carpenter. It has the electronic score. The special effects do hold up decades later. It's just been released in a brilliant 4K restoration, and it is absolutely one of my favorite ghost stories. Again, not a lot of on-screen violence, but just when that fog rolls in, make sure you lock your doors and your windows because there's something inside it. The Fog at number three.
Yeah, it's very good. That's good stuff. My number three, Isolation, Jack Nicholson, the great Shelley Duvall, The Shining. Even though my dream is to just be in the middle of the woods somewhere sitting by myself, when you really do have that isolation, what does it do to you? And then mazes. I don't like being lost. I can barely find my way back to my job that I go to every day and then back home again. But the idea of being in a maze and having to figure it out, no, just doesn't work. In the snow. Jack Nicholson at his finest, The Shining.
Fantastic pick. My number three is a 1996 horror action movie that made me fall in love with Selma Hayek, and that is From Dusk Till Dawn. One of the more fun sort of horror movies. I gotta say, I don't remember it being all that scary, but it was just like a great action, gory, kind of goofy, sort of scary movie. If you haven't seen it, it's Quentin Tarantino. It's Selma Hayek. It's George Clooney. It's got Danny Trejo. Need I say more? Go see it now.
Absolutely. Number two is right here on my wall. If my camera wasn't broken, I'd swivel over to show you. And it was Lord Uther's number 7, I believe. John Carpenter's remake of The Thing, because there was a James Arness version from 1953 that Howard Hawks did heavily. Based on the short story by John F. Campbell, Who Goes There, 12 scientists in the Antarctic, cut off from civilization during a blizzard, discover that there is an alien being that's been trapped in the ice for 100,000 years. It is thawed out, it is pissed off, and it can look and sound and replicate. And so who amongst this 12-man crew is in fact the Thing, and who isn't? They're going to have to use blood tests and flamethrowers to figure it out. All male cast, all terrific. Kurt Russell as MacReady. The only role for John Carpenter he did as impressively was as Snake Plissken in the Escape from New York, Escape from LA franchise. But this is Kurt Russell at his curtest best. Wilford Brimley makes an appearance in here. Keith David is fantastic. Again, it's paranoia. It does have grisly, gooey effects, especially for 1982, but that also have been recently remastered in 4K, high definition. And I watched a Blu-ray copy of that recently, and the effects look literally like they were just generated yesterday, like from a top shelf ILM special effects house. So The Thing, once one of my all-time favorite movies, it's now easily in number 2 for Halloween.
My number 2 delves into the things, something that Catholic school kids always freaked about. Devil stuff, The Exorcist. Probably shocking today even for people to see just a kid being foul-mouthed, spewing projectile vomit everywhere. Max von Sydow. No, wait. Yeah, was it Max? No. Yes.
Yeah,
he was the priest. Yeah, he was the priest. Yeah. I always say his name wrong. Then he winds up being in Needful Things as the opposite side of being a priest there, taking on that role of the devil himself a little bit. But great film, plays on the whole, God versus the devil thing. Freaks me out every time. Yeah. That's about all I have to say about that.
And you know what your mother's doing in hell if you've seen the movie. So there's your, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That was a great flick. It's definitely on my top tier list of movies that freak me out. Excellent movie, though. I mean, truly excellent movie. My number 2 is... I'm realizing this list, for the most part, leans into the fun of Halloween, even though these movies can be a little scary. But mine is Tales from the Hood.
Oh,
and this was a surprisingly great flick. It also has puppets, which, to be honest, is more funny than scary. But the guy who's getting freaked out and attacked by puppets 100% deserves it. And I had such a great time watching this. It has a twist ending, which I gotta say isn't even ruined by Tommy Davidson's terrible acting. So if you haven't seen Tales from the Hood, I highly recommend it. It's surprisingly really good. Great cast, great storytelling. A little bit brash, but good movie.
All right, friends, we've reached it. The cream of the crop, the pinnacle of our 8 is enough. We've counted down all the way from number 8 to number 1. And my number 1 is also on the wall. You've probably glimpsed it in earlier episodes of our Warp Core and Graying Jedi and NFL podcasts. It is the only Halloween movie that does not feature a masked killer wearing a William Shatner enhanced mask and stalking babysitters in and around the town of Haddonfield. I, of course, speak of 1982's Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Folks, this is not a slasher picture. It is more like an Invasion of the Body Snatchers riff, in which a mad toy maker in Northern California has a plan to slaughter 50 million children on Halloween night using technology and witchcraft and a incessant media blitz. The film presupposes and talks about the commercialization of holidays, how mass media can influence us. It also has some terrifically unsettling... The entire picture just feels like one dark walk through the chambers of madness. Silver Shamrock is who you should be avoiding this Halloween. If you have a Halloween mask with that chip, for God's sakes, don't wear it during the big giveaway at 9. But number 1, a much maligned but now reappreciated non-Michael Myers, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, the night no one comes home. Oh, and happy Halloween.
My number 1, again, thanks to Dick Van Patten, scared the ever-living stuff out of me. Prince of Darkness. There's two scenes in that movie that freak me out to my very core. And the first one is when this dark figure is kind of coming out of this church. Again, John Carpenter is just the master, and you can't see anything except for the shadow of this thing coming out of a church, which is obviously the devil, which, again, as everyone knows, freaks me out. And then the other one is when the hand is reaching through the mirror, and you see this paw-like hand that's being grabbed onto. I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. Too many years of Catholic school, too much talk of burning and in hell, and so the Prince of Darkness. And I guess my list is more of the freak out kind, especially my last four. But yeah, every time it gets me. I can't watch it. I cannot bring myself to watch that movie anymore.
Nice, nice. My movie at number one is one that I fell in love with. I saw it, I believe, in the theater as a kid. I got the VHS tape as soon as that hit the shelves. It is a fantastic Tim Burton movie. It has a phenomenally great soundtrack from, who would have guessed, Oingo Boingo's Danny Elfman, and that is The Nightmare Before Christmas. Easily one of my favorite holiday movies. I think you can watch it anytime between October 1st and December 31st, and it qualifies for all the holidays in between, including Thanksgiving. It's so good. It's timeless. My kids love it. Generations ahead of mine love it. It's a great love story. It's a great discovery story. It's a great coming of age story. It's everything you would want in a kids movie that is also great for adults. It captures the spirit of Halloween and the spirit of Christmas, and it delivers something that is unique, I think, in kids movies, because there's a lot of musical kids movies, but it gives you a very diverse, operatic but funky but rock and roll type soundtrack that caters to both the very casual listener and the very hardcore punk and goth type folks out there that love this stuff. It was absolutely outstanding then. It's absolutely outstanding now. The Nightmare Before Christmas rounds out my top 8. And gentlemen, we've got a lot of great Halloween movies here. There's a lot of diversity amongst our list. This is the first time I think we've had a list that didn't overlap very much. I am really excited for this Halloween season coming up in about 11 days from the recording of this podcast. But y'all, stay tuned with us. 8 is Enough may not be one of our regularly reoccurring shows as the Warp Core podcast, the Graying Jedi podcast, Cut the Cheese, Poke the Bear, Roast the Niner, but we will occasionally drop some of these goodies out there for you all to tell us in the comments, what's your top 8? Because 8's enough. We don't need more than that. But we want to share with you a little bit more about us, and you can share it with everyone you know. Join us at Pending Rebrand next time for our next edition of 8 is Enough. Thank you for watching. Have a happy and spooky Halloween.